Welcome to Bitesize B2B marketing, where our aim is to give B2B companies easy to digest tips to help improve their marketing efforts. My name is Steve, and you are joined just by me today. Solo episode, truly solo episode. So, Mitch is off at an art exhibition. Well, when I say at, he is hosting a art exhibition. So, if you are in the Stoke Newington area, go and check them out. They're called Uncover Collective. But yeah, he'll be back in the office again next week. So anyway, today we'll be diving into B2B marketing trends to keep an eye on in 2023. So what's going to be big, where should you invest your time, and all will be revealed. So the aim is to really give you some marketing inspiration for the new year and set you up for a great year. And just first off the bat, apologies for the audio issues last week. I know it had cut out during the session a bit, so we're still learning. We're still learning early in our live show days. So first of all, let's get going. I think we can't really do a 2023 chat without mentioning the R word. I am sorry, but it has to be done. The recession is going to play a big role in all of our marketing next year. Just for businesses in general next year, I think it's going to be a big year, potentially even into the next year. And not only have you got the competitive pressures, the competition that's always normally there, the pressures of that, you've also got the economic pressures as well. So you're kind of getting squeezed from both sides. It's going to be a tough time. It's going to be a tough year. There's no kind of sugarcoating that. Companies are less likely to spend on the projects, and especially after the government's campaign, was it early this summer, where they were trying to get people to cut their marketing spends to kind of deal with the cost of living crisis. But anyway, not fans of that here. So personally, have never worked through a recession or a traditional recession as such, let alone run my business through it or done any marketing for it. So it's all new territory for me personally, and also I feel you kind of had a brief glimpse of the pandemic and kind of how everything ground to a halt and how companies weren't spending and they stopped spending and campaigns were put on hold, ad spend was put on hold, and essentially I feel that's going to be a similar case to this case, but a lot worse. I feel like with the pandemic, there was the hope of the vaccines, and that kind of economy started to open up, and everyone was willing to kind of try and open up again, get back to normal, and the business is spent. But with this, it's likely that the companies aren't going to be spending until they can see that light at the end of the tunnel. And even myself, and even with our own marketing efforts, it is essentially kind of really thinking twice about where we spend this money and where we invest this money. And I think that's going to be a key thing for next year, is just the ROI and proving that. There's going to be no, kind of free spend, or there's going to be no kind of excess budget available just to play around. It's all going to be results driven, and I feel like that's going to be a key thing for next year. I feel like it's also you see that lots of people posting on LinkedIn at the moment about the stat where it's the businesses that invested in their marketing during the previous recessions. They saw the best results after. And just a caveat with that is, it's just not any old marketing. You can't just kind of publish a post a week or not put any effort into it and have some real thought and strategy behind it and do some real good marketing. It's got to be solid work. It's not just be a case of, all right, we can do a little bit through the recession, we're going to come out better. It's not just a given. So I think it's going to be a tough time, but it's also a good opportunity to really kind of prove the worth of the marketing work that's getting done. So as always in a recession, people kind of pull back from their paid spend. So why is this a trend to look out for next year? Well, essentially, with less people bidding on these platforms, it being less competitive, which tends to happen, people tend to pull back their ad spend during a recession. Essentially, that's what will be happening here. So what you will see is the cost per click, CPCs and CPMs will be down, but will be cheaper, which will make the paid ad more attractive. So that just doesn't mean though that because there is a cheaper cost that you should automatically just jump into it and put some money behind some ad spend. essentially what we are kind of thinking and suggesting here is that you've really got to be, the content's got to be on point, the funnel has to be on point. You can't just be putting paid spend behind anything, and just because the cost per click is lower, for example. So I think a great opportunity for next year is to look at and invest smartly into paid ads, because that cost per click and the CPM will be cheaper due to less people spending on those. And on the not only with that, like again with kind of LinkedIn ads, a similar thing, and even on the flip side of that, organic LinkedIn as well. So both from a paid and a organic perspective, LinkedIn again, I know I feel like I keep saying it so often, but it's going to be a massive play next year for B2B companies. And I think the key thing here is if you do have a if you're at a company where there has been scale back and budgets, and you're not got any money for those paid campaigns or any paid advertising, you have always got your time as a marketer. So what is stopping you and your team from posting and connecting on LinkedIn? So I think that's the two-pronged attach, which is going to be kind of key next year. You've got the time it takes you obviously to create that post or repurpose some content and put it out on LinkedIn, but apart from that, there is no ad spend. It's not pay to play, it's just your audience. So if you haven't done that already, now's a great time to start building that up. And kind of firstly, from the content point of view, you can repurpose that content that you've already got, as long as it's focusing around the customer's pain points and just weaving in any personal kind of posts as well, personal milestones. Are you a marketing manager, and essentially can you post about how how the team is growing, how do you motivate your team, and what you're doing there. So I think again the personal LinkedIn pages is going to be a big play. So I think that I hate to ban the personal branding term around, but again, it's not only is it useful for that marketer to kind of build up their own own platform, their own audience, but then it can also be used to kind of drive those leads coming in as well for the company. And it's something that we've been working a lot as well. And I think the next step for us is to kind of empower and encourage the team to then be able to post as well. And again, not going to be forcing them to kind of post a kind of a LinkedIn just post about a blog post that we wrote, or force them to post something. That's kind of empowering them and teaching them and getting them to kind of build their own audience on LinkedIn around their passions as well. And kind of weaved into that will be some kind of company related stuff as well, just based on the work that we're doing. And secondly, from that kind of aspect as well, is just the connection side of things. So just really using it for what it is, building that kind of network out and connecting with people, and just actively doing that, and just getting you and your team to be connecting with your ICP and the people that you want to be getting in front with. So I think personally it's going to be another big play, and for next year, which has been big this year already. It's been great, especially with the getting a lot of the executives at companies or thought leaders at companies posting about and kind of getting their expertise out there. Kind of following on from that as well is something that I will be feeling that will be kind of rising in prominence next year is the influencer marketing. And that is right, B2B influencer marketing. And I feel again kind of ties into that previous point with LinkedIn, with the audiences. If you haven't got your audience already, leveraging an influencer or another person who's got that audience already, and kind of using them to kind of help market your product or service. And I think with this, it's the aim is the same as B2C campaigns, leverage someone else's audience, and it's quicker than kind of building your own audience. And it's something I feel that more companies will be looking to do. I just feel like not many have been kind of moving into it yet. But as you'd expect with B2B, the time horizon for those campaigns is a lot longer. So rather than like a 1-day influencer campaign or 30-day influencer campaign in B2C, you're looking at kind of 6 months, a year campaigns, and a lot longer. So I feel like that's definitely another area to be looking out for next year. Next, we have got artificial intelligence. So we've been dabbling a little bit with this, just out of intrigue, really. It's not been anything to do with we've not put it out for any client campaigns. We've never used it for our own content or anything like that. But you have these AI content writers, such as Jasper, for example, and they're not 100% at the moment. You can tell normally when a piece of content has been written using artificial intelligence, but they're definitely getting better and better and more improving. So I think there's some good people who are posting some content on LinkedIn that are doing some good studies around this, especially around programmatic SEO. And they're really, really just kind of pushing the boundary on what can be done to create content at scale. And again, like I said, it's not 100% perfect, but it is improving a lot. And I'm not saying this is a good trend, but it's a trend. And, it's cheaper than a copywriter. So if people are trying to cut costs, I can see a lot of people trying to use this and see it as a thing that will help them produce content during next year. But I just also feel that it is to warn against it for now and not necessarily go down that route. And Google's released updates this year. I believe it was the helpful content update. This is where I need Mitch here. And essentially for that, it is just making sure that the content that is being served in the search results is not clearly like AI written at scale, just rubbish that's been churned out. So for now, keep an eye on it. See how you can use it in some marketing. Potentially you might not, but it's just good to keep an eye on it and just see how these tools work, because eventually this is going to happen and it will get to a point where it can produce great content without us knowing the difference. But one thing that has been excelling in terms of artificial intelligence is the image creation. So there's quite a few people who I follow who create these amazing pictures in Midjourney, DALL-E, Jasper, all these image creation tools where you can type in a prompt and it will give you a beautiful image. So I think kind of, deaf to stock images, really. Like, you've been able to use these AI image generation software to kind of help create certain images for blog content. And again, it's a case of playing around with them and see how can they be used. And a lot of them have commercial licenses. I think it's Jasper, definitely. You can use the images commercially. Obviously, you can't just stick a Disney character in there or have a Nike slogan. Like, whatever you create in that image still needs to kind of adhere to the copyright and other legal kind of side of things as well. So essentially, that's another area to kind of look at and to focus on in the next year. And I think it will be getting better and better and better. And eventually, that might not be next year, but definitely I feel like the year after, where that AI content writing, you'll be able to produce content at a fraction of the price of a copywriter. Is that the best option? I'm not saying it is, but it's definitely be a play for a lot of companies who aren't at that stage to afford a writer or to afford that and can give these copywriting software like some really good prompts and really good briefs to kind of then write from. So that's one thing I feel will be good to keep an eye on. And I'd mentioned before as well, something that I feel like companies are really going to have to focus on next year is really nailing their positioning and really picking a part of the market, championing that and going after it. I feel it's going to really benefit next year, the current climate, in terms of helping very specialist companies that have a very core offering that they're great at. So as mentioned before, the new business is going to be scarce, and so the positioning has to be bang on. We've got those economic pressures, we've got those competitive pressures, so you really need to carve out your niche, which is a bit cliche, but essentially just making sure that you have got that corner of the market that you own, you're constantly producing content about, you're a thought leader in it, you're the go-to person when someone has a query about the topic. So that's where really you need to be nailing that. And I think for this is something that we've really been working on ourselves this year. This time last year especially, we were kind of an agency for everyone. We would just not really focus on a specific niche. We had a few different kind of customers that we would work with, and they'd fit in different groups, but we weren't an expert in kind of one specific area. We weren't a thought leader in one specific area. And now this year we've really tried to narrow down and focus on one area. So I think that's kind of been a key part for us this year in terms of that journey, and I can just see it getting more important next year when there aren't as many leads, there aren't as many new business deals kind of flying around, and we're kind of fighting for those scraps essentially. And it's going to be less people spending money as happens in a recession, and it's just a case of really being that go-to choice, that kind of stand out person in the market that they want to work with. And I feel it is it's something that's going to be big next year, and something that companies are really going to have to focus their marketing in on, and just the company as well in general. And in terms of that topic of positioning, next week we've got Oliver Duffy-Lee, who will be joining us, so our first actual guest on the live show, so you won't have to deal with just myself or Mitch. And he is he's a marketing director at World Products, and he's also a fractional CMO at a personal branding agency called Kurogo. And as he's also, so I'm part of a agency kind of accelerator program where we kind of work on everything from the sales to the marketing. There's a big group of us in there of agency founders, and he founded that. So he's really helped us with our own positioning and how we should think and talk about ourselves, and how we should be an authority, hence the name of his company, Authority Agency. So he'll be talking more things about that next week in terms of positioning. So yeah, tune in as usual, same time, same place next week. So in terms of a summary, big trends for 2023. As mentioned, I think the recession is going to be the dark cloud kind of covering everything next year. We'll be tightening the belts and just being a bit more creative, I suppose, with the marketing. I think for me, trying to put a positive spin on it and just being like, we'll have to be creative. And it's a good time to kind of really double down on the things that we're working, and just also making sure we're not wasting any of our effort, any of our time, or any of our budget, like I know, which we normally wouldn't normally think that we do. But there's that great analogy or metaphor from a book called Profit First, and he was saying that the amount of, when you get a new toothpaste and you start putting the toothpaste on your brush, when it's new, you're just putting it on, your big dollop, get it all in there. But when you get down to the end of the tube, you realize you're putting in these very measured, small, tiny amounts. And I feel that's going to be next year. It's going to be very measured. It's going to be very focused amounts. But I think that's a good thing. So yeah, there's opportunity there. And as that stat I mentioned before, it's, companies that can nail their marketing during this period will come out better on the other side. It's a given. And yeah, so paid ads, because of that, cheaper cost per click, lower CPM. Paid ads will be a good opportunity if you have got that spend, and if you haven't, then there is that organic kind of focus, be that creating your own content, be that on LinkedIn, be that on your own blog. But again, organic is just your time invested in it and your team's time invested in it. So if you've got them there ready to create this, it's no paid spend after it that's needed. Influencer marketing, again, that's kind of one that I feel is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It just makes sense in the way that B2C has benefited from it for years. I feel like B2B companies will really be able to work with the influencers in their niche who have an audience, and as people get more of those on LinkedIn, we'll start to see that. In terms of creating that content, we have the artificial intelligence. So again, one thing to keep an eye on. And then as we will talk through next week in our live session with Ollie about positioning. So it's going to be a good one next week. I'm really looking forward to it. There's always a lot I learn personally from when speaking with Ollie. So if you want to follow along and find out more about us, we have got our own site, which you can find at Bitesize B2B Marketing. So that's our own page on LinkedIn. And we are currently in the process of getting our website up and live. We've started to upload these to YouTube, which will be linked on that LinkedIn page. And then we've also been through Podbean now, we've been turning these live shows into audio clips, a podcast essentially, which is available on Spotify, Amazon Music, if anyone uses that, and all other good podcast venues. Thanks a lot for tuning in this week, and I will catch you again next week, where I'll be joined with Mitch and Ollie, and we'll be talking about positioning. Thank you.